New messages have surfaced in the Nolan Wells case: times, boats, a specific location on Horn Island, and they've landed at the exact moment the one piece of evidence that could test all of it, Nolan's phone, still hasn't been examined. At the same time, the public is being given two completely different accounts of whether Nolan's family has cooperated with that examination. And now the NAACP Office of General Counsel has joined the family's legal team, working alongside Ben Crump. So here's what we're actually doing tonight. What do these messages establish? What do they fail to establish? And why has getting a single phone examined become the hardest part of this entire case? You're at Case Desk. If you're following this one, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from, because the developments are moving faster than the answers. Start with the messages, because that's what changed this week. What's circulating are communications between Christine Wells, Nolan's mother, and Warren, one of the people connected to Nolan's final trip to Horn Island. They're being presented as screenshots. Some of them are cut off. At least one is partially blurred. Keep that in mind, because it matters later. The earliest one presented is dated July 5th, around 2 in the morning. It concerns Nolan's father leaving the house to pick up a key, the same key that had reportedly been difficult to locate. Then, later that day, a question. Christine asks what kind of sunglasses Nolan was wearing. Warren answers that he's pretty sure they were Ray-Bans. Read that on its own, and it sounds like nothing. Read it as a mother whose son is missing, and it's something else entirely. She's building a description. What was he wearing? What did he have on him? What would somebody see if they spotted him from a boat? That's not suspicion. That's a parent doing what parents do when the search is still active. Warren also writes that he's been out looking that morning, and that he's been on and off the phone with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. None of that, by itself, proves anything about anyone, but it does establish something useful: contact. Who was talking to whom, and when. Then the messages get more specific, and this is where they stop being ordinary communication and start becoming timeline material. Christine asks about the boats. According to the messages presented, Warren tells her that Nolan went out on a 22-foot Triton offshore and that he, Warren, was on a 24-foot tide line. On the way out, they were on separate boats. He says he came back on the Triton and that the Department of Marine Resources and the Sheriff's Office already have all of this information. Sit with that for a second. 2 boats, 2 groups. One question that hasn't been publicly answered in any detailed way: what happened in between? Because if you're reconstructing someone's final hours, separate boats change everything about how you do it. Who left first? Who arrived first? Who was in visual range of Nolan, and for how long? Who saw him last, and how much time passed between that moment and the moment somebody realized he wasn't coming back? That isn't a theory. That's basic timeline reconstruction, and it's the same work investigators would be doing internally. Then there's the location. In one of the messages, Christine asks Warren, and she apologizes for making him repeat it, exactly where he saw Nolan last. The answer given is 3 in the afternoon, the west tip, north side of Horn Island. She asks where they launched from. He sends a location and says they launched the boats the previous evening and left from there that morning. Now, here's the line I'm not going to cross. A message saying something happened is not the same thing as investigators independently establishing that it happened. A screenshot is a record of what somebody wrote. It is not a verified fact about the world. But if that message accurately reflects what was being discussed at the time, then we now have the 3 things that make up a final movement's timeline: a time, a place, and people. Which brings us straight into the thing this case keeps colliding with: the phone. Nolan's family has pushed for a forensic examination of it. Authorities have also sought access to the device. And the examination has been delayed amid disagreement over how that process should be handled. That's the part that's being flattened online into something much simpler and much uglier: that the family wouldn't hand over a phone. That version leaves out the actual dispute. Because there's an enormous difference between refusing an examination and objecting to the conditions of one, and the family's position, as it's been described, is the second one. Before we get further into that, here's the material that started this week's conversation. Watch what's actually being shown, and pay attention to the dates and the times.
Messages were just released between Nolan's mom and Warren that can answer a lot of questions. And I need you to, I'm gonna go through these text messages one by one. You tell me, did it look like somebody like Warren is trying to hide something, or does it look like he's being a true friend? Now, first of all, I thought that Nolan's dad showed up unannounced, as the way, Warren and them told the story. Here's a text message, July 5th, 2 in the morning. Nolan's dad is out the house to pick up the key. Remember, he was trying to get the key from Jax. He said Jax couldn't find it, or it was taking forever. Then somebody else found it, and he didn't trust Jax after that. So then here's the next one. That day in the afternoon, hey, Warren, what kind of sunglasses did Nolan wear? I'm pretty sure Ray-Bans, Mrs. Christine. This is Warren. Then Warren says, hey, Mrs. Christine, just wanted to check in. We went out this morning to look, and I've been on and off the phone with Jackson County Sheriff's Office today. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. She says, thank you. Warren says, we are all praying for your family. We appreciate it. Then it gets deeper. Now, right here, she asked Warren what boat he was on, or what boat Nolan was on. He says, Nolan went out on the 22 Triton offshore, and I was on the 24 tide line. I ain't heard much about the 24 tide line. On the way out, we were on separate boats. I went back on the Triton DMR, and the sheriff's office has all this information. Then if you look again, Monday, July 6th, 1:37 p.m., hey, Warren, can you collect any of Nolan's items left at Jack's house? So it was still items after her father went there? I don't know. Then here's Warren again. Good morning, Miss Christine. I just wanted to let you know that my family and I have been praying for you and your family. Nolan was one of my best friends since we were in 8th grade together. You and Mr. Elmore raised one of the best men I've ever met. I wish I could be there today, but I would never want to take the attention off of your family and Nolan and be a distraction. Thank you for being the best parents that Nolan could have had. This was the day of the funeral, that Monday. Now, these are cut off. I want to know the full message up here, because this is where it seemed like it got a little spicy. It appears Miss Christine, Nolan's mom, said exactly where you saw him last. I'm sorry I am asking you to repeat this. 3 p.m. west tip north side of Horn Island. Where did you guys launch for him? He sent the location. And I don't know why this is blurred out. We launched the boats yesterday evening and left from here this morning. As the Wells family searches for answers and Warren and them trying to say that they had nothing to do with it and don't know anything, we are trying to find out what is true. But we do know a lot has been misinformed, a lot of misinformation, and I don't like it.
Okay, let's be precise about what that gives us and what it doesn't. It establishes communication. It establishes that Nolan's mother was asking direct questions during and after the search, and that she was getting answers. It establishes that boat information, launch information, and a last seen time and place were being exchanged directly between the family and someone who was on that trip. It does not establish that any of those details are accurate. It does not establish who was where at any given minute. And it absolutely does not establish that anyone did anything to Nolan. The messages are also incomplete. Parts of them are cut off. One section is blurred. And when you're working from a partial record, the gap is where speculation moves in, which is exactly what's been happening. There's also a claim in that material worth flagging directly. The suggestion that Nolan's items were still at the house after his father had already been there to collect his things. According to the messages presented, Christine asks Warren on the afternoon of Monday, July 6th, whether he can collect any of Nolan's remaining items. Does that mean something was withheld? No. It might mean nothing more than that a grieving family in an unfamiliar house missed a bag. But it is a question that documentation could answer, and that's the standard I want to hold the whole story to tonight. And while those questions were still unresolved, something else changed the scale of the case entirely.
Another major development in the Nolan Wells case to tell you about. The NAACP is officially joining the legal team representing Nolan Wells' family. Its Office of General Counsel will work alongside Ben Crump. They'll bring more legal muscle and investigative resources into this case. And the NAACP president, Derek Johnson, was exclusively on our show on Monday night, just after the announcement, talking about exactly why they're stepping in. Because let's be real for a moment. Nolan's parents have been fighting for answers for more than a month. They've asked for federal help, they pushed for more transparency, and they're ready this week for the joint forensic examination of Nolan's cell phone. So now the NAACP is in the room too. More lawyers, more resources, more pressure, and maybe that's what it's going to take. Nolan went to Horn Island with his friends. They came home. He did not. His parents want answers. And if you want to hear exactly what Derek Johnson told us, check out Monday Night's Live.
News, and I'm sure it's going to burn quite a you devils right on up. The NAACP's Office of General Counsel is joining the legal team focused on the death of Nolan Wells because truth, justice, and accountability cannot wait. Nolan's family deserves answers, and we will continue fighting to ensure that no Black life is ever overlooked, dismissed, or denied thorough justice. Drawing on the association's long history of pushing for full and fair investigation when Black lives are lost under suspicious circumstances, we will bring additional investigation and legal resources to bear and ensure that no stone is left unturned and the quest for truth and accountability shall prevail in the death of Nolan Wells' case and to his family. Boom.
Right.
There has been this narrative that was put out there, and I think they're trying to knock it down, which I believe was unfairly put out, saying that the family was somehow stonewalling investigators. But according to the letter, if you read the letter that they released this morning, they said, this is exactly what we agreed upon in July. And so, I don't understand why this information has been put out there. And that's all part of the investigation. What do you make of that?
There's more time been spent on deflecting the fact that there has not been a thorough investigation that the public have trust and believe in. If there's been a thorough investigation, great. If there's a grand jury where information is going to be provided, that's great. But at this juncture, local officials should not be deflecting what's really taking place. We're talking about a state with a history of not valuing African-American life. We're talking about a state that spent more time worried about the perception of its past as opposed to reconciling the current reality and doing what's necessary. A child never returned home. A child got on a boat with a group of friends. A child phone came back with a friend, and that child, the next time we see the child, he's unalive. There are some questions that need to be answered. We have a sheriff who made assumptions before an investigation was done based on the words of the individuals that child was with. This should not be the case. There needs to be a complete and thorough investigation.
How does the NAACP getting involved help?
Well, it broadens the ability of individuals who are receiving information. We have a bigger net. I live in Mississippi, so there are some deep relationships there. You have the former head of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division with experience in this background and deep contacts. So it allowed us, along with the Trump team, to try to assist the family in getting the necessary answers. Because apparently the state of Mississippi and local officials have not been as transparent as one would have liked them to be, or they're simply doing things that's out of the view and has lost the confidence of not only the family, but that community who has been affected.
We actually have proof that Grandpa Jerry was actually on Horns Island as well, which makes sense why he was able to call the captain, because he physically was watching. And now who was Wyatt on the phone with? Well, we know he was on the phone with Cecil Call, but let me show you Grandpa Jerry.
White-haired old man. Look, I just want you.
She also gave us a little specialty on Wyatt, and Now, I thank her for that treat, because we all been asking the same question. Where is Wyatt? Why haven't we heard from Wyatt? Where are his boats that one we know was missing from the MDMR report? We just have no information, no nothing on him. He is seemingly in the dark, like he's just disappeared somewhere. So where is he? And why haven't we heard from him? Just asking. My opinions, just asking. And thank you, Miss Trina. Thank you, Queen. I appreciate you.
The Knox Office of General Counsel has joined the legal team representing Nolan's family, working alongside Ben Crump. Here's what that actually changes. More lawyers, more investigative resources, a wider network of people who can receive and check information, and a significantly higher level of national scrutiny on every decision made from here. Here's what it does not change. It doesn't prove foul play. It doesn't prove misconduct by anyone. It doesn't identify a suspect. It doesn't establish that the family's account of the phone dispute is correct, and it doesn't establish that the authorities' account is correct either. An organization joining a legal team is a statement about resources, not a finding of fact. Anyone telling you otherwise is selling you a conclusion the evidence hasn't reached. But there's a reason the family went looking for those resources, and it goes back to the phone. The family's position, as it's been described publicly, is that they agreed in July to a joint forensic examination, a process where the device would be examined with everyone present and the handling documented. Their objection has been to turning the device over under circumstances they say differ from what was discussed. The competing narrative is simpler and it travels faster, that the family has been difficult, uncooperative, obstructing access. Those are two very different stories, and I'm not going to pick between them based on which one fits a theory I already like. Because these are answerable questions. What was agreed to in July? Was it put in writing? Who signed off on it? What changed after that? Who requested the change? When did the examination get delayed? And on whose end? That's the thing about documentation. Paper doesn't care which side you're rooting for. And notice what's happened in the meantime. While the process has stalled, the phone has been turned into a fantasy object online. People have decided it's a smoking gun. People have decided it contains a confession. People have decided that whoever wants access most must be trying to bury something. We don't know what's on that phone. It might confirm parts of the timeline. It might contradict something. It might tell investigators things they already knew and nothing more. Every confident claim about its contents right now, from any direction, is invention. Which is why the examination matters more than the argument about the examination. Two other names keep coming up, and both of them need to be handled carefully. The first is Wyatt. Social media has been asking where he is, why he hasn't spoken publicly, and what happened to information about his boat. And I understand the impulse, but silence is not evidence. Not giving interviews is not evidence. There are legal reasons, family reasons, attorney instructions, and personal reasons that all produce identical public silence. The relevant question isn't whether Wyatt looks suspicious. It's narrower than that. If he has first-hand information about that day, investigators need it. That's the entire point. The second is the claim that Grandpa Jerry was also on Horn Island. That claim is circulating as though it's been confirmed. It hasn't been, at least not publicly. And this is exactly how misinformation compounds. Somebody posts a screenshot, someone else reposts it, a third person adds commentary, and within a day, 10,000 people believe a fact exists that nobody has verified. So establish it or drop it. If he was there, records can show it. If he made a call from the island, phone records can show that too. If he wasn't, that should be said plainly. What shouldn't happen is a private citizen's name circulating as a suspect on the strength of a repost. There's one more development that hasn't gotten the attention it deserves. The Congressional Black Caucus has urged the Justice Department to review this case. Between that and the NAACP's involvement, the pressure on this investigation is no longer local, and it's no longer coming from social media alone. So let's be clean about where this actually stands. What's established? Nolan Wells went to Horn Island during a 4th of July trip. He did not return with the group. His body was found days later. The independent autopsy commissioned by his family listed both cause and manner of death as undetermined, pending further investigation. Ben Crump represents the family. The NAACP has now joined that legal team. The forensic examination of Nolan's phone has been delayed amid disagreement over how it should be handled. What isn't? The exact movements of every person on that trip. The precise boat movements and timing. Whether the claim about Grandpa Jerry's presence can be independently confirmed. What the phone contains. And whether any individual named in online discussions did anything wrong at all. That second list is not a list of accusations. It's a list of things evidence can resolve and screenshots cannot. Because here's where this case actually is now. 6 weeks of questions, and the answer has never been closer to a machine reading a device than it is to a person arguing on the internet. The messages can suggest a timeline. Statements can challenge it. Only forensic evidence can test it. So the next thing that matters isn't the next viral video. It's the phone examination. It's the location data. It's the boat movements reconstructed against the communications. It's the witness accounts compared side by side with the inconsistencies explained, or with somebody explaining clearly that there aren't any. And underneath all of it is an 18-year-old who got on a boat with friends on the 4th of July and didn't come home. His parents have spent the weeks since learning what time he was last seen, what he was wearing, which boat he was on, and where his belongings ended up. No parent should have to assemble their child's final afternoon from text messages. The case hasn't been solved. But something has changed. There are more lawyers, more resources, more federal attention, and more pressure to produce an evidence-based timeline than there were a month ago. The next real answer should come from that. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city, state, or country in the comments. I want to see how far this case has traveled. And tell me what you think. Do these messages bring us closer to understanding Nolan's final hours, or do they expose gaps that still haven't been explained? Keep it respectful down there. We can ask hard questions without accusing people of crimes that haven't been proven. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because when that phone examination happens, Case Desk will be covering it.